What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Table Setters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, once again joined with my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Episode 120 here. Welcome and happy Thanksgiving Eve if you're listening to us live. Thanksgiving Eve is still, I'm guessing, still the biggest party night of the year. I know that like when I was back in my 20s, not to age myself here, but it was always a big party night. People coming back from college that have been gone for a few months, seeing your old friends. So we're gonna get wild and crazy on Table Setters tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I remember all those days when you go out to the bar and then you wake up all bleary-eyed and hungover on Thanksgiving, and all the people and family are over. And gone are those days. We're here talking baseball instead, like you mentioned, episode 120. We can't get enough of it here. And again, I want to reiterate what Devin said. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. If you're listening to us, we appreciate all of your support, and thank you guys for listening to our episodes last week. Thank you to Eno Saris and all the clips that we got from that. Looking forward to have other guests on. Devin and I are brainstorming for this offseason about what we're going to be doing to bring you guys the very best content from start to finish to get us through this long, cold winter.
Yeah, man, it's been a big start to the offseason over here at Table Setters. A lot of fun. It's just, we love talking baseball. We love talking to different people about baseball. And let me just give you props right off the bat, Steve. That episode with Eno Saris, I mean, obviously, big time FOMO for me. First time ever that one of us missed an episode here as the other went on recorded. But it was kind of cool for me to sit back and be able to watch or listen to an episode of Table Setters as a viewer or listener without knowing what's coming, like what the questions. I mean, I saw the questions you wrote up, but like knowing the answers and maybe some of the unexpected questions that are going to be popped in there unexpectedly. It was a great interview as someone, and I'm not just saying that because, you know, I'm a part of the show. Like, it was wonderfully done. Eno had some fascinating answers. I love the direction that you took the interview. We got some big compliments from it. I mean, one of the biggest was someone on Reddit saying they enjoyed it a lot, and just they watch and listen to everything Eno does, and so many of the guest appearances he makes, I think the guy said, are simply like someone asking him, what about this player? What do you think about this player? What do you think about this player? Over and over, which could still be interesting, but I guess it can get tiresome if it's over and over. So you took it in all different directions. I love the questions about like where analytics are headed in the future, maybe 10, 15 years down the road. What are we talking about that maybe we didn't see coming? And if you're listening to this right now and you have not listened to that episode, one of our best performing episodes ever, one of our best, I'd say 2-3 week periods or 1 month period we've ever had, charting in multiple countries. And it's just been a lot of fun. And to see that just makes us feel like, you know what we're doing is working here. People are enjoying it. The compliments are great, kind of reassuring for us. But Steve, in all seriousness, I don't want to blow up your ego too much because I don't want to get Marty Jannetti'd. I don't want you to Marty Jannetty me. But seriously, really, really good. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I know a lot of other people did as well.
Oh, thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate that. Trying to make the, first of all, Table Setters brand proud, but also keep up with Eno Saris. I've been listening to Eno for about 10 years, following from Fangraphs through The Athletic, listening to his podcast. So I knew, this is a guy who pretty much was the father of Stuff Plus and all the analytics that we know and love today, all these fantasy models that we base drafts on. So I wanted to step my game up. And that was the goal too. The compliment that we got on Reddit or other social media outlets was talking about the conversation moving elsewhere. And that was really the goal. I didn't want it to be this preview player and talk about those things. And I wanted to get a little bit more of his take on baseball at large. And we get that on Rates and Barrels. We get it on wherever he does his appearances. But I thought it was a really fun conversation to talk to someone I really look up to. And all the kind words I gave him during the show was genuine. He's one of the more respected voices in all baseball, and someone I not only use for fantasy baseball, but really dictates my knowledge of baseball from the analytics and beyond, because he's been ahead of the curve all the way through.
Yeah, and it's just cool when you think about it. Sometimes, like, we do these interviews, and then, like, little did we know, like, a week later, something we talked about is in the news. Like, we talked to Keith Rad, the Mets radio voice, and he brought up during one of our questions, you know, the Brandon Nimmo stuff, and, like, Nimmo's defense in center wasn't good, and he wasn't great in left either, so maybe you need to do something. He wasn't really talking about trading Nimmo, but talked about the defense stuff, which is now front and center. Like, a week later, Nimmo's traded, and that run prevention is right there in the conversation as a big part of the reason why. And we're going to talk about that trade a little later. And then the Eno conversation, I felt it, you know, it was interesting that somehow, and this is like 3 days before the Sonny Gray trade went down, like somehow Sonny Gray found his name in that interview out of your mouth, basically asking about does Eno believe in the whole people can't pitch in New York? Certain people can't pitch in New York kind of thing. And he goes on to talk about Sonny Gray's kind of disappointment in some of the Yankees analytics when he was with them. It's just very interesting to have those conversations and then just days later sometimes see it as a big part of the news. So well done to you. And like Steve said, we have lots more on the docket for the next several months as far as people we expect to talk to, teams that we will maybe do a special episode on and really kind of get down to the nitty gritty of a certain franchise. And, stay tuned. Lots to come.
So for this offseason, we are off to the races here, and we got some news dropping before we went live. So serendipitous that we did not go live earlier in the week, because now we have a full plate of all the entrees here. I'm going to lead with the big story that everybody's talking about: the Blue Jays making their biggest free agent splash in franchise history, agreeing to a 7-year, $210 million contract with Dylan Cease. This, of course, all credit goes to John Heyman of the New York Post. He was first on this. So this deal, which includes still unspecified deferrals, according to Ken Rosenthal, we're still waiting for those things. This edges past George Springer's 6-year, $150 million contract, is the largest free agent commitment that the Toronto Blue Jays will have ever made. And you can look at the decline that we've seen from Cease in San Diego. You can talk about the advanced stats, and we will get into those things. But this is Cease entering his age 30 season. He's one of the more fascinating case studies in modern pitching evaluation. On paper, the ERA certainly has bounced around. His 4.55 mark in 2025 mirrors the mid-4 result he's posted in the last 2-3 seasons, but the underlying metrics paints a far more stable picture. So what is your thought on this? I had predicted he went to the Mets. I believe you had him going to the Cubs, or vice versa. Vice versa. Yeah. There you go. So the Blue Jays went out there and said, you know what? We're keeping this window open and we're going pitching first.
Yeah, I didn't see the Blue Jays coming for Cease. I knew they were going to be active in the free agent market, and pitching included. I wasn't just expecting position players, but Cease, for whatever reason, wasn't on my radar in Toronto. But it's interesting. I saw one stat that said Cease and Kevin Gausman have the most strikeouts, the top two in the 2020s. If you look at all those years, and now they're in the same rotation. I mean, the rotation surely looks great. I think it's a decent landing spot for him because he is not expected to be the ace. He doesn't have to be the ace. He just has to be a positive contributor. Cease is it's a little bit back and forth in a lot of ways. I mean, sometimes it's like every other season he's really good. And there's some things about him you absolutely love, and others that, it's kind of like, is this guy really that good? In one way, on one hand, he makes a lot of starts seemingly every year. Like he puts those 30 starts together or more. On the other hand, a lot of those starts are a little bit disappointing, as far as 17 of his 32 starts last year were 5 innings or less. And I know that frustrated a lot of Padre fans, and including our friends at Divine Sports Gospel who cover the Padres and are kind of relieved that Dylan Cease is not in San Diego anymore. So there's both sides of that. I mean, you pointed to the analytics. There are some analytics that say that 4.5 ERA from this year was a little bit unlucky. You look at expected ERA, you look at Sierra, and both of them will point to something in the mid 3s, which makes it seem like, all right, a little bit unlucky. Part of that luck, though, is made by him. He makes his own luck by putting way too many on base for many people on base for free. Way too many walks. It has always been an issue for Dylan Cease. And that's going to be something that someone at least cut down a little bit there if you want to be an elite starting pitcher. And then lastly, for now, the other thing that has held him back a little bit is he's pretty much a 2-pitch pitcher, fastball, slider, and they're good pitches. But you become a little predictable sometimes when the other pitches are thrown so infrequently. It's not that he doesn't have any other pitches, but those two he relies on very, very heavily. And the word on the street for years now has been that he's tried to add a different, very effective third pitch that he can throw more often. But if you look at his baseball savant, he is very heavy with those 2 pitches. I think if he could add a solid third pitch, he could get closer to that elite level. But I don't think it's for lack of trying. I just think he hasn't found a pitch that he can throw super effectively and often. So it's a mixed bag for Dylan Cease, and I think 7 years that'll take him to 37 years old is a lot of years for a guy who's a bit of a mixed bag. But on the other hand, I don't dislike it for Toronto. I think there's some other teams where if they signed him for 7 years and he was the best pitcher on their staff, I'd be like, I don't like that he's going there to try to be the guy. The Blue Jays, man, they're coming off being, what, 4 outs away from the World Series victory or something like that. I mean, as close as you can get, basically, without winning it. Or you could say 1 inch or however far away IKF's foot was from home plate. So I don't mind it for Toronto. I don't think it'll age well, although I don't think there's a lot of starting pitchers signed for 7 years, 30 years old or older that age well. I mean, speaking of Eno, they just had an episode about this on Rates and Barrels about free agent pitching contracts and how many of them have gone so poorly. And often these teams know they're paying for the first 3 or 4 years, hoping that by the time they get to year 5, 6, or 7, yeah, it's not going to look good. But if they got something big done in those first 4 years, they're okay with kind of giving them that pay for what they've already done. But a little bit scary. Dylan Cease is hard to figure, though. I think that's what there is to say about Cease.
Yeah, I mean, MLB trade rumors had him estimating about to get $189 million. He got 210. And you mentioned some of the durability. That probably is his most underrated trait. Since debuting in 2019, he's never spent time on the IL for an arm issue. You go back to an IL stint due to COVID, but no pitcher has made more starts since 2020, with Cease taking the mound at least 32 times in every full season and totaling an MLB leading 174 starts over that span. He doesn't really typically pitch deep into the games like you're referencing, but the reliability when it comes to his turn in the rotation has to be a premium asset in itself. And that might lend itself well, being that he's not the ace in this rotation. So maybe the expectations are not for him to be this anchor, but being a guy you can turn around and get quality stuff. And if you have some of the coaching we see, new faces, new places type of thing, maybe we'll get a little bit more of a buzz here to have him aligned with getting that walk rate down. Because you look at the swinging strike rate, it consistently sits at the top near the league. So I feel like there's a lot there to be happy about. Like you said, 7 years is a very long time, but the timing does fit Toronto's trajectory. They just competed their deepest postseason run in decades. You referenced getting the Dodgers to extra innings in Game 7 of the World Series. But the rotation picture was there was a lot of uncertainty. Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett are hitting free agency. Shane Bieber held a $16 million play option that he's seen poised to decline. And now Kevin Gausman approaches free agency after 2026. Jose Barrios can opt out after this upcoming season. So this winter is changing the entire outlook of what they're going to be doing. I think they want to capitalize. And let's not forget, Trey Savage arriving late in the season, immediately looking like a long-term rotation clog, does kind of change their perspective how things are. And then Bieber unexpectedly exercising his option, keeping him in the fold for this year. Cease joins as this kind of stabilizing force. And you referenced the Rates and Barrels episode. They were talking about Cease. And there is something about if you're pitching through pain, you're pitching through injury. He hasn't done any of the IL stints because of the arm, but that doesn't mean he wasn't beat up. The guy's making his starts. Maybe he's like pitching at 75%, which means you're going to get hit harder, which means the ERA is inflated. But in the long run, it's helping your bullpen because you're giving innings, and all these things are considered. So if you're someone who subscribes to the overlying stats and you look at the metrics and all those things, he got more money than the projection, but the Blue Jays have some urgency, and you got to appreciate them spending.
No doubt about it. It's interesting. You mentioned one projection that makes this look like an overpay. Baseball trade values, which I mean, usually they're in the business of rating trades for as an overpay or even or an underpay. And I know there's some people out there that are huge critics of the baseball trade values, Twitter account or website, whatever you want to say. But I mean, it's interesting to look at. They actually had their model projected Cease to be worth $235 million in adjusted field value over the next 7 years, which actually makes it look like the Blue Jays got him for cheaper. I mean, I don't know how much I buy into that. I think it's pretty expensive. I mean, $30 million a year. You got to remember, it was just a few years ago that like 40-year-old Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander were being paid $40 million a year by the Mets and Steve Cohen. So it's this $30 million a year thing for the starting pitcher, for top tier guy as far as this free agency class goes, that didn't shock me. And I did see one report that said the deferred money actually brings the AAV down to about $26 million a year. The 7 years is what I jumped out at me. I was like, wow, I did not think Dylan Cease was going to come off of this year that he had and get 7 years. That sounds like a lot. But you know who he reminds me of a little bit? Not necessarily with what he throws or how he throws. ability, but not always great category is his new teammate, Jose Barrios. Like before Barrios went extremely durable, all the talent in the world, super highly touted before he made the majors, and has been one of those guys where it's like he has starts where he's like fantastic, and he would put up lots of starts, good amount of innings, but have some periods of time where he was just unimpressive and frustrating. I feel like Cease is in that same boat in a lot of ways. Only I think at this point, Barrios is who he is. Cease, I think there is still some belief at 30 years old that you can still get a little more out of him and turn him into that perennial all-star type of guy instead of like a once-in-a-while all-star caliber guy. Don't forget, it was just a couple years ago that the Padres started him on 3 days rest to try to close out the Dodgers. At that time, that is how good Mike Shildt felt about Dylan Cease. And obviously it didn't go well. And it seems like ever since that point where they end up losing game 4 and then the Dodgers win game 5, go on to win the World Series that year and the next year, Cease has not been that dominant guy almost since that series. But he was thought of like that at that time. So everyone has a short memory in baseball. What have you done for me lately? But you have to point to those moments. We put up a poll earlier today before this signing went down, interestingly enough. And it basically asks who our listeners would trust the most in a 4 or more years deal out of some of the starting free agent pitchers. Their choices were Framber Valdez, 32 years old, Dylan Cease, 30, Ranger Suarez, 30, and Michael King, 31. I mean, that poll is still active until about midway through tomorrow, actually 17 hours to go as we sit here on Wednesday night at 9:16 p.m. But Cease, 38% of the vote, leading the way. So it's interesting because this signing goes down and a lot of people are screaming like, whoa, what an overpay, way too many years. Yet in this poll, the majority of people that are seeing this poll are picking Cease as the guy they trust more on a 4+ year deal than Framber Valdez, then Ranger Suarez, and then Michael King. Michael King only got 10% of the vote, which, I mean, still going, but surprised me. So, yeah, and I think that is another thing that paints the picture of people are a little bit confused as to who Dylan Cease actually is.
Yeah, and I think looking at just the urgency, as I mentioned before, from Toronto, there's an appreciation for that. And again, digging deep into the advanced stats, the volatility in ERA has been largely tied to swings and BABIP. Like you look at 260 in 2022, his ERA was at 2.20, got him second place in the Cy Young finish, 330 in 2013, 263 in 2024, and 320 in 2025. The FIP has sat steadily between 310 and 372 in 4 straight seasons. So kind of shows you that it's essentially the quality of the pitching staying the same while the surface stats are suggesting that he's not really the same pitcher, but he is a guy that is really about putting guys on base. If you could fix one of those things and tinker with it and make sure he's not giving up these free passes or maybe giving him an opportunity to rest himself if he gets hurt with the fact that he signed for a longer term deal and all of that. I do want to correct myself on Jose Barrios. I mentioned he's a free agent after next year. It's actually 2029. So we have Gosman that is actually going to get an opportunity. This is his last year with the Blue Jays if he decides not to opt on. But the Blue Jays are pretty stable right now, and adding Cease to the fold makes them better. And I think that's really what it's about for if you're a Blue Jays fan. We mentioned how close they were this year. Cease being added to the fold just makes them better, especially when he's not expected to be your top of the line ace. He could slide in as a 3, a 2, and a guy that you can just expect he's going to make a start every 5 days.
And what you just pointed to is actually a smart point as far as maybe his new team can rest him a bit more when he's a little banged up instead of pitching through things. And again, we're jumping to a conclusion a little bit that is maybe what happened in San Diego. We don't really know. He hasn't revealed that actually is the truth. But if there is some truth there to a guy who's been super durable pitching through pain, you are now in a rotation that certainly looks like it can afford to send you to the IL a little bit when you have minor nagging injuries to get better. We just heard the Dodgers, or someone from the Dodgers, spoke about how the Dodgers are the one team who treats injuries differently, where it's like, go on the IL, don't rush back. We really want you mainly for the playoffs. So like, take your time, get fully healthy. We're going to probably make the playoffs anyway, and we want you fresh for the playoffs. And it certainly has worked out for them. And then on the other hand, my Mets, we just had some reports come out, Adam Ottavino talking about how The one thing Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns don't do very well is kind of protect their bullpen guys and wear these guys down. And we then heard a little bit of other things about David Stearns maybe rushing certain pitchers back from rehab assignments too soon, or skipping rehab assignments altogether that probably shouldn't have been skipped. So those are two very different pictures being painted. And the Blue Jays, I mean, you got so close. And now if you have this rotation that is full of guys that are veteran pitchers mixed with Trey Savage, who is just some dominant stuff, I think you're in a really good spot to kind of do that with your pitchers, where it's like, all right, just, go to the IL for a little while and get fully better before we get you back here. Like, we're going to be okay. Although I will say, on the other hand, the AL East is an absolute gauntlet, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight. Whereas the NL West, I don't think it's a bad division, but they certainly have, at least a team like the Rockies in there that are a little bit of a layup as we speak. So we'll see. Maybe the Blue Jays don't completely have that luxury that the Dodgers seem to have, but I think there's a little more of that in Toronto this coming year.
So the one thing, we have Matt in our fantasy baseball chat, he did post the stat that Cease has a career ERA of 6.04 against the Red Sox and a 5.34 against the Yankees, which, again, some history, of course. He was with the White Sox, so there is some AL magic. But again, looking at the ERAs for past expectancy of where they were, he's a different pitcher. And I think year after year, we have to kind of look at that and see where it's at. But the AL East is an absolute gauntlet where every team essentially is trying to win. We'll see what the Orioles do to respond here. But you mentioned David Stearns. You mentioned the New York Mets. We got a really surprising 1-for-1 veteran swap. And the first one I remember in recent memory with the Mets and the Rangers completing a deal. Let's talk about it here.
Yeah, so Brandon Nimmo goes to Texas in exchange for Marcus Semien. 1-for-1 deal. I think it caught all baseball fans, but especially Met fans and Ranger fans to a degree, off guard here. And I will say this. My initial reaction as a diehard Met fan, and you guys know because I responded in our fantasy baseball chat, which becomes a little more of an off-season chat at this time of year, right when the deal went down. And there was a few people in there, including your brother, who's also a hardcore Mets fan, who was saying he liked it. And I was just reading this like, I can't believe he likes this deal. And I responded, my initial reaction was I hated it. And I will tell you why I initially hated it. Marcus Semien is a 35-year-old dude, seemingly pretty clearly the last 2 years on an offensive decline. And then the first thing I did was like, all right, he's 35. What is the contract? Like, how many years does he have left? Then I saw he had 3 years left, and I'm like, I hate it even more. If it was like one, like this year and then maybe an option or something like that, I would have been a little more relaxed. But I didn't love that. And then as I listen and see other people's coverage and opinions, you kind of cycle through things and your thoughts sometimes change. I'm not going to sit here and say I love the deal right now, but I'm keeping an open mind for a couple reasons. I do buy into Semien still being a very good defender at second base, one of the best, even at 35 years old. You pair him with Francisco Lindor up the middle shortstop second base combination. That is the best person short of, Luis Angel Acuna sometimes when he plays second is a very good defender. Jose Iglesias, if he would be at second, was very good with Lindor there in his time with the Mets. He'd also play some third and things like that, so he wasn't always over there. This is the best full-time guy that Lindor has ever had to work with as his double play partner as a Met. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that had me looking a little more optimistically is there's this story that's been out there now that is true. And even the Rangers themselves, their front office has said they still haven't really necessarily figured it out from what I've heard. That park in Texas has become the ultimate pitcher's park. Everyone's offense has seemingly declined since right after the Rangers won the World Series. I don't know what exactly has happened. There's all kinds of theories out there. But that makes me think, all right, Semien was once a big power guy, right? There's still some pop left in that bat. And you look at his numbers from the last year or two and you think, I feel like he's better than that. And maybe there's a little bit of a bounce back out of Texas. I'm not saying Citi Field is a fantastic hitter's park. It's somewhere more towards the middle and probably a little bit more of a pitcher's park than it is a friendly hitter's park. But maybe there's a little bit of bounce back there. And the other thing, the other part of this deal is it does give them some flexibility as far as what they now go on to do in the outfield. All right. Obviously, the first thing comes to mind is could they possibly go after Kyle Tucker? In my head, I know Steve Cohen is insanely rich. To me, that's like to have a Soto contract and a Lindor contract and then put a Kyle Tucker contract on top of it. I really don't think that's happening. No one has completely shut the idea down, but I would be shocked if that is something that actually happens with the Mets. And then obviously Cody Bellinger's name comes up, which I think is more realistic. The problem is you can get excited about those two names, but if you keep on looking down the list of free agent outfielders, this is one of the worst outfield free agent classes we've ever seen once you get beyond those two guys. There's not a lot to be excited about. And I know David Stearns is trying to open up a spot for Carson Benj as well, but you need two starting caliber outfielders at this point. If you believe in Benj, great, but you still need another guy. And Benj is the unknown. I know he's been really good in the minor leagues, but if you're going to give Carson Benj a starting spot in the outfield, the other guy you bring in to fill the other open outfield spot better be a little more of a sure thing. Like, I don't know. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this deal. And then I don't want to just talk about it on a Mets side, just because that's my team. The Rangers, I know one thing that I've seen Ranger fans really like about this, and I think there's a good point to be made, is Brandon Nimmo over the years has figured out how to hit lefties as a left-handed batter. He was once upon a time very similar to what Evan Carter is now. Very talented kid that just could not hit the left-handed pitching. That is holding Evan Carter back big time right now. Their new manager, Skip Schumacher, has basically come out and said, we are running with Evan Carter and giving him every opportunity that he deserves. Whereas previous administration had kind of, played him almost half the time as he struggled through certain things. You now have a guy like Nimmo who can maybe take Evan Carter under his wing and try to, help him out in that department a little bit. And the other thing is Nimmo he's just one of the greatest guys on the planet. So you are bringing in a fantastic person to represent your team. You should be excited about it. Offensively, he has grown into a solid player. His walk rate has gone way down, which is a little concerning. That was once upon a time a huge part of his game, but I think that's a little overblown because when he was walking a ton, he was the Mets leadoff hitter for a long time. They then moved Francisco Lindor into the leadoff spot, which Lindor kind of killed it there. And Nimmo was kind of batting in other spots where he probably shouldn't have been, but they had to put him somewhere, sometimes cleanup. So yeah, when you're put into those spots, you might have to be a little more aggressive in the batting lineup. I haven't seen many people bring that part up. They're just like, his walk rate has fallen off a cliff. Well, all right. Well, when you're in a different part in the lineup, sometimes you're looking to do different things. I think that's an important part of the conversation. I love Brandon Nimmo. I always will. I think they got a great guy. I'm trying to be optimistic about Semien, but to be honest, my ultimate opinion of this deal is going to come down to what they do next. And I do feel like this is part one.
Yeah, and with Keith Rad's interview, when we interviewed him just a week ago, it rings in my head. He used the word run prevention. It's all over social media. It's the Mets front office talking about it, and they get an elite defender at second base, fresh off a second career Gold Glove. Semien is that guy. Now you mentioned the ripple effects. It is interesting what the Mets do, whether it's the free agent market or what they do in-house, because now by my calculations, this makes Jeff McNeil the new primary left fielder. He has also surfaced in the trade chatter. Brett Baty now appears locked into third base unless the Mets pivot again. And then you also have Jett Williams entering the outfield future with Semien and Lindor controlling the middle infield. And then the presence of Semien, to me, crowds an infield that already includes Vientos. We mentioned Ronnie Mauricio, Acuna. All of these guys could be valuable or viable trade pieces in some other future deals. But offensively, Semien does give the Mets a right-handed bat in the lineup that is leaned left, subtracts Nimmo's presence. Citi Field, as you've discussed before, is not known to be a hitter-friendly environment, but New York is banking that there's a combo of not only defense, but you get some leadership and bounce-back potential to outweigh the risk of this recent decline that everyone talks about. And for Semien, you look at some of the conversation about him, he will always be beloved in Arlington for his role in delivering Texas's first title in 2023. That season he had there is a huge part of it. But I think a lot of this conversation kind of speaks to what we're going to be getting for both teams who are pivoting in different directions and some different philosophies, because you can kind of look at just the second base and what Texas will be doing for this season coming up. But let's not mistake anything about this. The second base mix, you get Josh Smith, you get Ezekiel Duran, but possibly top prospect Sebastian Walcott is in the opportunity to maybe get some playing time in there. And that has to be a part of this conversation here where they're like, well, we have this guy. As you mentioned, he signed on for a few more years, and the money to me is inconsequential here. I understand the Mets will take more of a luxury tax hit in the immediate. They're actually shedding $30 million worth of salary with Nimmo being gone because he was 7 years left on his deal. But the Mets are not done here. That's the thing. Like, you can't grade this until the end of the offseason. I feel like the Mets are putting the pieces together. And if we're going to be looking at the aggressiveness of this front office, Nimmo, I mean, this trade does force them to be more aggressive across the rest of the board.
It does.
And I think, you look at their link to center field upgrades. We'll talk about free agency when we get to the blind rankings. Like, Cody Bellinger is on the radar. Maybe get Juan Soto shifting to left if the Mets are pursuing a right fielder. Kyle Tucker, of course, you mentioned that. Like, will Stevie Cohen go that route? I don't know. All of this is just interesting. And when you get a 1-for-1, there is a lot of discussion of just the player versus the player, but you have to consider the external circumstances that I mentioned. Walcott, I mentioned all these other players, that there is a logjam. And let's not forget what Keith Rad said, what you've been saying, Nimmo's defensive lapses, that comes into play. And there's a lot to be said about that, where if you're shoring up the defense, and I'm not saying this is a copycat move, but there has to be in the back of the head, these winning franchises, what the Toronto Blue Jays did is looming in everybody's head. If you are able to secure the defense, and Semien brings that in spades, even when he's slumping at the plate, this is a guy who's going to be secure. He's a vacuum at second base. So all those numbers aside, I think he's going to bring that to the table. And I watched his press conference. They did a Zoom thing with the New York media. These guys, some of the questions they were asking was ridiculous. I'm not sure. One of the guys from New York Post was talking about replacing Nimmo, and he was a favorite here, and he had a lot of it. Just it could inflame. I can understand why players that are not from here, that don't play here, feel a certain type of way, because they're inflammatory, headline grabbing comments. And to Semien's credit, he was awesome. Every question he asked, he first of all said, "Hi, nice to meet you." In between every question, "I hope you have an amazing holiday," and then answer the question. So he kind of faced the venom from the New York media immediately with kindness. Let's see how long that lasts. He's the utmost professional, but it wouldn't shock me to see any guy that gets fed up with this to just start yelling at these reporters, because some of the questions felt out of line to me, and I'm not even a guy like that.
Yeah. So to touch on that, one or two of these reporters who you're referring to, we won't call them out by name, are like openly like Brandon Nimmo is their favorite Met player, and have kids that Brandon Nimmo was very nice to, and like the whole family are big Brandon Nimmo fans. And I saw one or two of the questions you're talking about, which seemed like taking it out on Semien that their favorite player was gone, which is extremely unprofessional. New York can be tough media, but like, don't bring your personal biases of which players your family really likes into a question to the new guy. Both guys, Semien and Nimmo, utmost professional, like you said. Both of them handled it. Nimmo had some great interviews as well, whether it be his initial introduction to the Texas media, or he was also on MLB Network, which he came off fantastic, and he always does. Let's be honest, he always does. Semien, captain in Texas, if we didn't know. Like, they just traded their captain. Big deal. Another thing about Semien, right-handed hitter, pulls a lot more of his fly balls, which works in Citi Field for the right-handed hitter nowadays. Not David Wright when it was the Great Wall of Flushing, but nowadays it's actually good to be able to do that. And the age thing you mentioned in the contract length, Nimmo's 2 years younger, but the other thing that softened the blow for me a little bit is so Nimmo 5 more years in his contract, Semien 3. Both contracts bring the guys to their same age. So that kind of, when you look at it that way, eases it a little bit if you're worried about Semien being 2 years older. Citi Field, believe it or not, rolling over the last 2 years, is Park Factor on Baseball Savant, the 12th best hitters park, according to Park Factor, for right-handed hitters. So that's important. Whereas Globe Life Field for the Rangers, second worst over the last 2 years. So I think there is something to look at with that. It's wait and see. As far as the guys you mentioned, the Vientoses and the Batys of the world, Luis Angel Acuna, I think, has kind of positioned himself a little more into a full-time bench guy, defensive replacement. Every once in a while gets a start to give a guy a blow, stolen base kind of guy. That I think that's who he's going to be. Ronnie Mauricio, I think what this does is, listen, we know David Stearns needs to get pitchers. All right, at least one. Most people think 2 starting caliber pitchers. I don't know if he's actually going to dip his toe in this free agent market. He really, especially if this is the market. We know how expensive starting pitchers were at the trade deadline last year. He stayed out of that. And now they're clearly still very, very expensive. If Cease is getting 7 years for $30 million a year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does not go the free agent route and he instead tries to move some of his expendable assets. And the Mets now have what? I think, according to a few different websites, the most top 100 prospects in baseball, if not the second most, depending on which source you're looking at. So they're a pretty loaded system right now. And I mean, if you're going to take the Dodgers route, you are going to use those guys as currency here. So I think there's a higher chance of David Stearns going and trading for some starting pitching than there is of him signing these guys. So I think one or two of those guys could be in a deal like that, whether it be the Vientos of the world, which a lot of people still believe in him. If you look at the analytics, like he could really be a 30 home run guy. And that's a conversation for another day. Baty showed he flashed the most last year. Mauricio, I think there's a lot of people that think he has the most talent, but still hasn't put it all together. You can't keep all these guys. So why not move one or two of them or more in a deal to bring someone to contribute to this rotation? So like we both said here, it's kind of wait and see what's next for the Mets, and there better be a few nexts at this point.
Yeah, and before we move on from this, got to mention that obviously the Mets had to ask Brandon Nimmo to waive his no trade clause in this, and there was a conversation between him and the Rangers ace and former Mets teammate Jacob deGrom before he agreed to the deal. For this, it closes the book on a 13-year association with the Mets organization. So then put out a really nice tribute on social media for him. I mean, he was the number 13 overall in the 2011 draft. This is a lifetime Met. This is a guy that it's really tough to move on from, but this is a business, and we talk about run prevention. And in the moment, if you're talking about run prevention, you want your defense to be better. Marcus Semien hasn't beat there, but we'll see how this works out offensively for both teams. There's certainly a different strategy for both the trajectories. There's a recalibration of both these players. Texas betting on the durable long-term profile and a better offensive fit for their lineup. But New York, as we mentioned, is prioritizing defense, roster balance, and maybe some payroll flexibility in a team that spends a lot of money. But let's talk about Sonny Gray to the Red Sox. And I guess the conversation can go multiple ways. We can talk about the Red Sox. We can talk about the rebuild in St. Louis shifting from a theory to actually something that is a reality, because the Cardinals made their clearest statement yet about where their franchise is heading, sending Sonny Gray and $20 million cash in considerations to the Red Sox in exchange for right-hander Richard Fitz, left-handed pitching prospect Brandon Clark, and a player to be named later or cash. For the Cardinals, to me, this is a move that trims payroll, adds some controllable pitching, and acknowledge that their window to contend is really no longer tied to their veteran core. This is a Red Sox team taking an aggressive step toward fortifying a win-now rotation around their young roster and the steps that they made. This trade brings resolution to an arc that really has hovered over Sonny Gray since last winter, because St. Louis outlined its intention to step back from contention. All the conversation in the St. Louis market was talking about prioritizing player development. He's a guy who really didn't fit into what they were doing, and he invoked his full no trade clause and chose to stay. So this is a guy who's like, all right, I'm going to see this through. I'm here for the long haul. And the club was hopeful that it can compete pretty quickly. They did the things that they did in the offseason. Clearly, we saw how it played out on the field, wildly disappointing. And this is the second straight October that they spent at home for Sonny Gray as well. That's not what he wants in the later half of his career. He said he wants to win. And here we are getting to join a Boston team, not only reach the postseason 2025, but appears to climb further than that, this young core. And they already have an ace level presence, kind of copy and paste what we talked about with Dylan Cease. Sonny Gray is not expected to be the ace. Garrett Crochet is there doing what he's done. This is a guy who, comes into a locker room with already Roman Anthony, a front office that has kind of spent on the depth there. He's a guy, he's just going to be a reliable innings eater, comes in, plus strikeout, walk numbers, a strong postseason track record. And I think it's a really good fit. I really like it for them. And he's pitched in the AL East before. Of course, the overlapping conversation, you referenced it before in the intro, was he did not pitch as well with New York. And that was a conversation. Maybe it has to do with the splitter. Maybe it has to do with not being able to pitch in New York. We shall see. But from a performance standpoint, Sonny Gray is a sturdy mid-rotation anchor. That's what you can look at him. 180 and two-third innings with a 4.28 ERA in 2025. The underlying metrics include a 26.7 strikeout rate, 5% walk rate, 3.29 Sierra. He was much sharper than his ERA indicates. There's a lot of contrast to the Dylan Cease stuff on a cheaper deal, if you will. This is like a cheaper version of Dylan Cease in this rotation. Like I said, he's a guy that's out there not to be the ace of the staff. A lot less pressure than maybe when he first came over to New York at the trade deadline. But he's going to be joining Crochet, who's at the top, of course. He's their ace. And there's some internal candidates about how this rotation's, because a lot of questions about Boston. I think we will discuss throughout the offseason about what this rotation will actually look like when we hit April 2026.
Yeah, I mean, on the Cardinals side, Heim Bloom now in the driver's seat. He's basically being tasked with something he was once tasked with in Boston when he was there, and that is clear the deck. Clear the deck. We need to move as many of these guys as we can, these veteran guys, and kind of start at a clean slate. It's not working. We need a restart. And so he's doing that. And he's just so happens to be trading with his old club here in Boston. I think this is a no-brainer for St. Louis. I mean, you can debate whether they got a good package back, whether they not. I think it's a fine package for who they're moving here. Sonny Gray, I think if you look at all the numbers combined, he's basically going to be paid $40 million this year. All right, which is it's expensive, but the good news on Boston's side and why I still think it makes sense for Boston is I believe there's a mutual option at the end of the year. So, I mean, I would put betting money on right now that Sonny Gray will be in Boston for 1 year. All right. Unless they opt out of it and then somehow re-sign him for less money. I mean, there's always that possibility, I guess. But I think it's a 1 year thing for Boston. And I think they probably believe in some of the younger arms that they have that will then be able to step up. But this is security, a veteran guy. We need him for this year to take the next step. And then hopefully these guys like Peyton Tolley, like Connolly Early, are fully ready to contribute to the rotation in 2027 if, the lockout doesn't get in the way. Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of what I was already going to point to with Sonny Gray. The knock on him is clearly going to be that he has had trouble pitching in the AL East. He has had trouble pitching under the bright lights. Boston certainly counts as the bright lights as a big market. But then on the other hand, we just talked to Eno Sarris, who referenced his time talking to Sonny Gray when he was a Yankee, and Sonny Gray basically being like, listen, I don't like the way the Yankees have used the analytics with me. They're asking me to throw this slider in the strike zone way more than I do. It's not a good pitch. It basically just spins and hangs in the zone and gets crushed. So when you see that, and by the way, Eric Kratz, former teammate who caught him, part of foul territory now, literally like a day after this, reiterated that same kind of stuff. Like Sonny Gray didn't like what the Yankees were doing with him. It didn't have anything to do with big market and him being nervous or anything like that. It was more so he felt like he was not able to contribute to the strategy of how he was pitching. That's got to be frustrating when they're telling you, no, do this. And you're like, that's not good for me. And you're right. So a little bit of it's let's see what happens, because after he left New York, he started being a very good pitcher again, right? He was great in Oakland before New York. And then he was very good at the other stops he's been, which has been several now. I know there are some Boston fans who are disappointed or in disbelief that this might be the number 2 starter that Craig Breslow is talking about acquiring. And some people are still in denial, like, no, this is not the number 2 guy they were talking about. They're still going to go get someone else. I'm a little surprised by that. Like, I think maybe you're getting a little bit greedy here. You got Garrett Crochet last year, and he is everything you dreamed of him being. Sonny Gray as a number 2 is a guy dependable. You kind of know what you're going to get. I know the ERA was above 4. He's certainly capable of bringing that down, in my opinion, still. Some people will be critical. He throws the curveball too much. He relies on the curveball too much. His velocity is just going to keep on going down. You just need him to be solid for 1 year, in my mind. This is not like a 7-year commitment like the Toronto Blue Jays just made with Dylan Cease, where you're like, oh, 7 years, it's going to be dicey. It's a year, man. You don't think you can get a good year out of Sonny Gray? Andrew Bailey is a very, very good pitching coach from what we've seen, and I think we'll do well with Sonny Gray, especially I'm sure he's heard the history of why Sonny Gray feels like he struggled in New York, and I would think Andrew Bailey would learn those lessons and be inclusive with him in the plan. I like it. I know a lot of Red Sox fans don't. I like it. That's all I can say. I think he's going to be good for Boston. I think he will help them take the next step. And Boston, just like a couple other teams we've mentioned tonight, I think there's more to come with Boston. I will say one of the thoughts in my head, one of the critical thoughts in my head when I saw this was like, why not just re-sign Lucas Giolito? But he's probably asking for a multi-year deal. I don't think he's as durable as Sonny Gray. Obviously had injury issues, got hurt before the playoffs. So I kind of answered my own question there. Like, that's probably why they preferred this.
Yeah, and you talk about the rotation. The more I think about it, the more you're right. He probably slots in at number two, unfortunately, unless you consider Brian Bayo being
I
the
don't
number
think it's
two.
unfortunate. I don't think it's
But
unfortunate.
it's Crochet, Bayo, and I understand where they're coming from because you look at the internal candidates. I mean, Cutter Crawford, you're looking for a bounce back from him. Connolly early, we saw him a bit at the end of the season. Peyton Toll, Kyle Harrison, Hunter Dobbins, Luis Perales, Patrick Sandoval. They're all competing for jobs here. And I think for on their end, when you have this window opening with feeling like they can win now, you would hope the rotation can be something that you can rely on because Garrett Crochet, like again, does a lot of the heavy lifting. And if he's not there, the rotation does not look the same. But I think with Sonny Gray being there, like, yes, they are better. But if I'm a Red Sox fan, I do want more. I think for a team that's, if
Sure.
their goal is to win the World Series, they probably want more. And I guess a lot of them are judging the deal on the fact if they're going to be paying him, like you said, $30 million with the $10 million buyout, which is $40 million, maybe
Right.
they're not doing anything else. And that's what they're concerned about. That would be a Boston perspective.
I see that. I think, and it is all about perspective, right? And my perspective is probably coming from just watching a year of Mets baseball with a bunch of five and fly guys who could like almost never get deep. And
True.
it's frustrating as hell. And then I see Sonny Gray, and I know 40 million for Sonny Gray doesn't sound great, but again, probably 1 year. 17 of his 32 starts, he went 6 innings or more, including a complete game shutout at some point in the season. So you know he still has that type of ability. 14 quality starts. Like, I don't know. As what I just watched this last year, I find it hard to complain that's our number two starter. Yeah, it's pretty damn good. You have Garrett Crochet as your ace. Sonny Gray's next. Like, really? We're complaining about that? I struggle with that.
So for the Cards, though, just for what they got back, I think Brandon Clark, 22 years old, is the higher upside swing for them on their end. 2024 fifth round pick. He's a feature a power starter's frame, electric 97 mile per hour, a devastating 70 grade slider. The question is, and of course it is a big one, can he develop a reliable third pitch and trim those walk rates? It's easier said than done. It ballooned to 18% at high A. If he can't, the two pitch mix could make him a late inning weapon, maybe a reliever. If he can, St. Louis may have landed a future rotation piece with frontline tools. But again, clearing $20 million, gaining two young arms and loading up on some additional moves, making this a strong indication that this roster, as currently constructed, will not remain intact for long. Executives around the league fully expect them to completely dismantle what they have here, whether it's Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, you name them. They're probably for
Wilson
sale.
Contreras.
There's a sticker on it for them right now. But in the end, this deal perfectly captures where each of these franchises stand. And St. Louis is looking forward. And I give them at least credit where they're not delusional. And at least there is a chance of like, all right, St. Louis baseball, like what we saw last year and the year before that is mediocrity and almost just like, we're going to push forward no matter what. Just like putting the jersey on will make us better. There's an understanding like this team needs to change. There needs to be a facelift. You need a young core, and it just wasn't there. So I give them credit for at least buying in and trying the best to sell the pieces off. And it sucks in the immediate for St. Louis fans, but in the end, it's the right move.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very rough year. You mentioned those names. I think Wilson Contreras might even be dealt. Nolan Arenado, they basically have said, at this point, I've almost given up on them being able to find a deal for him. I think he might just end up being released. So yeah, it's going to be a rough year in St. Louis. It's the cupboard is going to seem a little bare as far as what's actually on the field, but you hope that they're able to restock that cupboard with these deals that might be still to come. The one thing, if you're looking for a bright side, looking for something to watch as a St. Louis fan, JJ Weatherholt, by all opinions and everything everyone has seen as far as baseball fans and baseball analysts, is going to be the real deal. And you kind of hope that he comes up and almost has a Roman Anthony, Nick Kurtz type of first-year presence where right away it's like, holy shit, that's the future. Like the present is pretty bleak, but we have the future here, and he's a legitimate, looks like real perennial all-star type of guy. And I think JJ Weatherholt just might be that.
So to finish up our opening say here before we move to fun and games with the blind rankings, there was a lot of news media around the New York and New Jersey metro area talking about Hal Steinbrenner. And this was the topic on New York Sports Radio, and rightfully so, because he held a video call with reporters. And within minutes, he delivered a collection of comments that were immediately hard to take seriously from the perspective of a New York fan, a Yankee fan, Met fan, no matter how you are. He said it would be, quote, ideal for the Yankees to lower payroll, and then followed up by claiming the team didn't make a profit in 2025. Despite Forbes reporting that the franchise brought in over $700 million in revenue just this year alone, he was pushed on that by the reporters on the call. And he argued that the outside observers only focus on revenue and ignore expenses, the annual payment to the city, developmental costs, scouting, performance science, and everything it takes to run the organization. He wants everybody to look at the full picture, and the profit narrative does not hold up. And this is just absolute nonsense. He did go on to talk about the Dodgers and what they're doing, winning. Of course, it is a concern. But again, this is more of the a conversation about laying the groundwork for potentially a salary cap that is going to be argued for, but it seems like Hal is in that camp, which is so insane to me to think about as a Yankee, what his father would think about this. Yeah. And as far as the Yankees go, there is a brand presence that we don't even have to get into. I mean, is the most recognizable brand in all sports. They might be the most recognizable brand in the world. Their logo alone is a global money printing machine. To act like they're crying poor is just insane to me. And again, I think you put it on our Twitter at Table Setters Pod about what we think the offseason will look like for the Yankees. And I think he's kind of trying to soften the blow here by saying like, we're going to try to lower payroll and get it. I mean, because you look at the Yankee Stadium economics for comparison. I did some of the numbers here. A team accountant at Fenway Park once explained that the Red Sox lose about $500,000 to $600,000 on a rainout, but make $1 to $2 million on a typical home game. That's Fenway Park. Smaller. Obviously, it is a big market, but there's lower capacity, way fewer premium seating sections. It's an old, they didn't rebuild it there. Now apply the same man to Yankee Stadium, where you got 10,000 more seats, higher average ticket price, significantly more premium inventory, enormous corporate presence, massive tourist traffic, and the literal biggest merchandise machine in all of baseball. You're approaching $3 million per home game, sometimes more. Take 60 strong home games out the gate of an 81 game slate. You're already in the neighborhood of $180 million before postseason games, concerts, soccer matches, off-season events, the Yes Network's revenue, international licensing, sponsorship, and on we go. So Steinbrenner suggesting the Yankees didn't make money in 2025 is either A, just a tone-deaf attempt to try to paint the franchise as cash poor, or an accidental admission that he can't monetize the most powerful brand in baseball. So what is it, Hal Steinbrenner? What are we doing here? It's so insane to me. It's either a self-inflicted wound or it's coming from someone who grew up on John Steinbrenner's version of this team. The version who we're spending is a point of pride. This whole woe is me routine is infuriating to me. Get out there and win baseball games. And to say the Dodgers are doing the wrong thing, you're not trying to win baseball in the best place possible. You are the New York Yankees. If you're not going to spend money, sell the team. Sorry, sell the team.
Yeah, I mean, this might be why he doesn't speak to the media more often, because it's like foot in mouth, dude. Like, I don't know if he thought just thinks he's smarter than everybody and thought he was going to trick Yankee fans into being like, oh, yeah, I guess we shouldn't do that much this year. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, you lost to the Blue Jays. Everyone thought the Yankees were going to little brother the Blue Jays there, right? And that's not what happens. The Blue Jays are now seemingly on top of the AL after the momentum they've built through this playoff run. They go get Dylan Cease today. Obviously, these Steinbrenner comments came before that. But yeah, I was already wondering, and you and I kind of went back and forth last week about this, about what the Yankees will do. And you said, listen, they need to get better. I kind of pushed back saying, but where? Because this is a two-sided story now. I was already skeptical of them doing much this offseason before the Steinbrenner comments, because it's like Ben Rice has to play first every day, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Ryan McMahon, you just traded for last year. You're going to give up on him already, even though he's under contract? I think that's kind of tough to do. Jazz is at second in a contract year. You got Volpe and Caballero at shortstop. I don't know what's going on with Volpe. I think if there's another shortstop you could trade for, i.e. Corey Seager, you certainly do it. The outfield's pretty full, especially with Grisham re-signing, I guess, somewhat unexpectedly is the report we've heard, the rumor. Spencer Jones, I think it's put up or shut up time. Like, he needs to come play. How much longer can he be in AAA? And if Bellinger comes back, which I think is actually a little bit of a long shot at this point, I mean, where are you improving the team? If you tell me starting pitching, your rotation's loaded. You got Garrett Cole coming back. Carlos Rodon is still there under a hefty contract. You just signed Max Fried to 8 years. Cam Schlittler looks like he's going to be a top 5 pitcher in a couple years in the league. Clark Schmidt's pretty damn good when he's out there too. Are you really adding another starting pitcher? I don't know where that fits. So, like, you look all over there, and my answer is, like, I guess bullpen. You've already let a few bullpen guys go. If you let Weaver walk, and you let Devin Williams walk, which I still think there's a chance Williams is back. I think the Yankees like him better than their fans do, like their front office. But I think my gut is what you're going to see for the most part in the Bronx is some bullpen tinkering. I'd be pretty surprised. I'd be surprised and not surprised. It's still the Yankees. So if they signed Kyle Tucker tomorrow, I might be like, oh, wow, I was very wrong. Right. But in a way, like, I would be surprised after these comments. Like, it did sound like a guy who's trying to convince his fan base, like, listen, we don't need to do anything. We shouldn't do anything. And that's just going to rile up the fans more. There is this side of me too, where it's like the Yankees were pretty good last year. And when I just went around the field naming those guys and then naming those pitchers, it's a pretty freaking good roster. So, like, if I take Steinbrenner's side a little bit and play devil's advocate, like, I don't know, you already have a bunch of giant contracts. Garrett Cole, Rodon, Max Fried, like, these guys are making big money. I don't know what they're going to end up doing with Jazz, but like, there's at some point, just continuing to add big contracts might not be the answer. With that being said, even if I do believe that, if you're Hal Steinbrenner, even if you're thinking this, you don't verbalize it. Like, that's just stupidity.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point, truly. Like, if it makes them better not to add, I don't want them taking on contracts just because they could. It should be making sense. It feels like they take themselves out of the equation for some of these signings because of, like we said before, and the fact that they're claiming to be poor and saying we didn't make profit, that to me, that just alludes to a fact that they are setting the groundwork of a bridge they want to walk across and say, see, we tried, but we had all the shortcomings. Listen, this is the cost of doing business playing in this baseball world. Things do cost money. Fans do not want to hear that it costs money to scout. It costs money to pay your play. Like, these things are part of the deal. You make money hand over fist to do this. And again, other franchises go out and they have a different approach. The Yankees certainly aren't the most egregious of the owners to not spend, right? Like, we already spent time talking about this, but in the same breath, that they pretty much set the blueprint of spending wildly and doing whatever it takes to win. Now the Dodgers doing it. And the comments that we didn't even talk about was, again, talking about the Dodgers and their concern about them winning all the time. But it makes me feel as a Yankee fan that there isn't really that much of a concern that they're not winning the World Series because they got the postseason gates. They were able to pack the ballpark on a weekend and be able to have one of the highest attendance, if not the highest in baseball. It's about more of the financials where, again, you don't want to rose-colored glasses George Steinbrenner and say back in my day, but truly it was about winning. It was about putting another banner up, and it doesn't feel like this ownership team has that same approach. And again, the team, like as you mentioned, as constructed, yes, they are paying a lot of money, and the argument will be they're getting Garrett Cole back on top of it. So what would this team have been like with Garrett Cole added to this rotation? So again, that's going to be their mindset going in, and they're not going to want to log jam, whether it's the outfield or the infield, with a big signing if it means they believe in these younger players, which means Spencer Jones better be it. Jason Dominguez better turn around and show why he is the Martian. But all these things come together where you don't want to hear that they're not signing free agents because of the money. Tell me it makes sense because of the way the team is constructed.
Right. Yeah. No matter which way you look at it, the comments are just asinine for him to make. You're the New York Yankees, like you said, most recognizable logo in sports. You'll go any country and you'll see someone wearing a Yankees hat, like making money hand over fist, as you said. I think if you're a Yankee fan, in my opinion, as a non-Yankee fan, the best case scenario for this offseason would be like figure out the bullpen, no matter what that looks like. Could be bringing some guys back. It could be signing some other free agents, making a trade. But then the best case scenario for them is, even if you don't bring Bellinger back, if you can work out a trade for Corey Seager, if he is truly available, and plug him in at shortstop, to me, you are immediately the World Series favorite. And I mean that with that starting rotation and that group of position players, which is, like, for the most part, a bunch of all-stars. Like, literally, like, you look, there's an argument to be made that if Seager was on the Yankees, you go around the diamond and see who's playing each position, it may be a more talented group of position players than the Dodgers have. And they have Shohei Ohtani. Like, I'm serious about that if Seager was added to that. And then you look at the rotation, and the rotation's pretty damn good as well. So I think that's the best case scenario. I don't know if Corey Seager is truly available or not. I mean, Nimmo, we just talked to him. He said one of the reasons he waived his no trade clause is because he was convinced that the Rangers are going to try to win consistently. If he had any hint of them moving a guy like Corey Seager. Why would he believe that? So I guess that's a wait and see.
And the thing is, too, where with Seager, he signed until his age 38 season, which is 2032, and he's owed a significant amount of money. So, like, the Yankees would have to be willing to pay that money and sit there and say, we will. If you have a similar deal like we're talking about with Semien and Nimmo, where you find a way to include a deal, and I think it would probably cost a little bit more for a Seager, even though you're eating a lot of that money. It would have to be the right deal with the right prospects. Obviously, you're taking control of a lot of that money, but Texas would want something that will help them in the immediate and also in the future, because they would want to pack that ballpark in 2026, but also have a bright spot. And it might have to be the names we're mentioning. You may have to give up on a Spencer Jones. You may have to give up on a Jason Dominguez if it comes to that. But again, if you're a Yankee fan, Corey Seager kind of checks a lot of the boxes we're looking for here: veteran leadership, postseason pedigree, a guy who's done it, who's been there.
And see him in a Yankee uniform. I could just picture. I'm not a Yankee fan, but I could just picture it. Like, there's something about it that feels. Sorry, Rangers fans. I mean, I think he looks good in that uniform too, World Series MVP. But there's something about picturing him as a Yankee that just feels like it fits a little bit.
For sure. And so as we kind of come to the end of our opening say here, we are live again. We would be remiss if you don't tell us to follow us on social media at Table Sitters Pod on IG and on X. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on X, if you're watching anywhere on audio or listening on audio, we appreciate all the support. If you can, please leave a 5-star review. We're going to move into our fun segment of the evening here, talking about blind rankings. And Devin and I are tasked with 8 in total, where Devin is being tasked with some free agent tag teams, and I'm going to be doing a blind ranking. I'm going to be presenting to Devin, I should say, a ballpark and a free agent matched. So, Devin, how do you want to approach here? Do you want to start and give it to me, or do you want me to give you the player and the ballpark and rank them 1 through 8?
Let me go. Let me present to you first with the tag teams. By the way, we did this last year, so this is becoming a yearly tradition. We had a lot of fun with it. And maybe we come up with some other categories. It's a good way to kind of keep the free agency alive, but talking about it in a different way. So the one I'm going to present to Steve here, and he's going to blindly rank 1 through 8, is imagine free agents came in package deals, right?
Like the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys.
These are tag teams. They're attached at the hip. You cannot get one without the other. Imagine a world with that. And then he's going to rank them here. So I make this, I don't want to say as difficult as possible, but you really have to think about it to kind of put these guys in the right spot. And then after Steve ranks, we'll ask if he likes what he finished with, and then compare it to the total F-WAR of each combination to see if it kind of matches what he did or if it's really far off.
Should we play some music in the background here while we do this? I have some rock music or some dance pop music. I don't know what StreamYard has to offer. The rock music I'm familiar with, but I think we should at least set the
if you want
here.
to. Yeah, if you'd like to, that's fine with me. I'm
all right, let's set the stage with some rock music here.
All right. So if you're ready to go here, 1 through 8, we're going to start with the combination of Zach Gallen, starting pitcher, and he's going to come with Adolis Garcia, who just recently non-tendered by the Texas Rangers.
Zach Gallen and Adolis Garcia. I'm going to put that at 8.
Oh, okay. At the very bottom. Wow, interesting. Aggressive. I like it.
I have a feeling you're going to be including some bigger names. I don't dislike that group, and I like Garcia's power, and I'd be interested to have a conversation in the future about where we think Garcia's best fit will be. Sure. And I love Zach Gallen, but I think the combination will fall an 8 for me.
Okay, so I feel like you're waiting for top of the you're more interested in the top of the ticket of these tag teams. The Shawn Michaels.
Who is the Shawn Michaels? I think Zach Gallen is Shawn Michaels.
Zach Gallen's the Shawn Michaels in that group right now. Okay. I'd say maybe not a strong Shawn Michaels, but early rockers, I guess. Okay. Anyway, next one. Here's one of your big tickets. Kyle Tucker is going to be paired with another Kyle. This is the team called the Kyles. Kyle Finnegan, who looked pretty good in Detroit when he went over there as their closer for a little while. So the two Kyles, where do you put them on the list?
I'm going to put them at strong 4. That's my immediate. We're going to the Tucker-Finnegan connection at a 4. And if we're picking a hawk or an animal in both group, I think Tucker with the face paint and the shoulder pads for sure. Finnegan strikes me as a guy who would be an LOD guy regardless. Like, I feel like he has that energy.
All right. I like it. I like that you are labeling each tag team with a real tag team. I think
All right, I'm gonna try my best to put my wrestling knowledge and my hat on. I think I have 8 tag teams I can give you. Come on.
Oh, of course. That's got to be part of it now. And you started it, to be fair. So, all right. So we have 8 and 4 taken up. The next one I'm going to present to you is Michael King coming over with a defensive presence in Harrison Bader to help him out in center field.
Oh, I like this. This is the Young Bucks right here. Michael King and Harrison Bader. I'm going to put them at 5, though, because I think Bader, although he was a nice lightning rod for the Phillies, I think there is something to be desired offensively from him, even though there's a nice profile there. And Michael King, the injury concerns are out there for me. I like Michael King, but the injury
everyone
thing
likes
scared
Michael
me.
King.
So
Yeah, Michael King is he's going to be so interesting to see, not just where he signs, but what he gets. Because again, he's coming off his walk year was an injury-riddled year. The guy's brilliant at times, but I can't wait to see where he lands and what he actually gets. So talented.
That's the Young Bucks. PWG Young Bucks is Michael King and Bader. In the tassels and all of that. Come on.
Okay. Super kick party. Are we going with that? Super kick party?
Yeah, super kick party for sure.
All right. I'll just say this right now. All the people that are listening that are not wrestling fans, I apologize for that part. Just ignore it. We're still talking baseball here. Okay. Your next tag team here. You have the 1 spot available, the 2 spot, the 3 spot, so a lot at the top. And you also have the 6 and 7. 6, 7, right? How do you do 6, 7? 6, 7.
You're
officially dead now. I killed it.
You're officially back at work, too, so it's like it's in your head.
I can't help myself.
You did well when your Achilles was torn. You were saved from all the 6, 7.
Yeah. But to be fair, I may have just done everyone a favor and killed 6, 7 by actually doing it.
I was told by one of my nephews that it was dead. Once I said it, it was dead. I said it to him. He's like, it's officially dead. No one talks about it anymore.
Fair. So I just buried it then.
Yes.
All right. So your next tag team here, Alex Bregman, strangely just not being talked about all that much right now. Yeah. But Alex Bregman and Zach Littell, steady starter, was traded away from Tampa, right? I believe went to Cincinnati, and he's a free agent now. So Alex Bregman and Zach Littell together.
I'm going to put them at 3. I think Littell bouncing back would be a big thing. And I think Bregman, I do buy in what Eno was saying in our last episode 119. He defies the aging curve. So I'm putting him at 3, Littell and Bregman. As far as tag teams go, who would be... I'm going to make them the New Age Outlaws. It's Alex Bregman, and he's the road dog going out there with the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, Bregman's got to be... That makes Zach Littell Mr. S coming out in the booty shorts.
You didn't know? Yeah, sorry, Zach.
I don't know, he might like it. I mean, Billy Gunn's still in great shape, and he's like 100 years old.
Still wrestling today while Road Dogg is an agent. He's big. All right, we're talking too much wrestling now.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I was going to keep on going with it, but let's stay on track as much as we can. We've already gone a little bit off the rails here. All right, so that takes the 3 spots. Still those 1 and 2 spots at the top available here. All right, Framber Valdez, some character concerns, is going to come over with another guy with a little bit of character concerns. Marcell Ozuna from the Braves, but not anymore, is going to come with Framber Valdez as a tag team.
Wow, some character concerns here. What tag team to go with the two of them? Framber Valdez. I got to get back to you on the tag team. I'm going to put them at 6, though, because Ozuna, there is a lot to be concerned about with the regression. If you take it 3 years ago, they might be number 1. But
yeah,
I'm going to put them at 6 just to be safe here. But,
Framber, 32 years old. Marcell getting to his upper 30s soon. You're right. A few years ago, that'd be very, very enticing.
I'm gonna go tag team wise. I'm gonna go Power and Glory just for the 2 of them and Framber Valdez.
Glory. Wow.
Power and Glory.
All right. I would have gone like Headbangers or something real weird, just like two idiots.
Yeah, I was trying to think of character concerns. Like, I guess I could have went Los Guerreros, and then Framber Valdez has the Astro, lie, cheat, steal type of thing.
Lie, cheat, steal. Yeah, it makes some sense. Okay. All right, we can always change it later if something pops into your head. All right, so we have 3 tag teams left here, and we still have the 1 and 2 spots. So you better hope you really like a couple of these.
Time, rolling those dice.
And then you have the 7 spot, so you have to hope there's a combination you don't really love as well. All right, so Kyle Schwarber, that's a big guy right there. He's going to come over with a free agent that got a lot of criticism after Game 7 of the World Series, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, to come play some utility.
I'm going to put them at number 2. I love Schwarber. No matter where he goes, he carries it. He is a future WrestleMania main eventer. And by all of it. He might as well be a, honestly, it's like when Kane and X-Pac team together. They're not a team. They're tag team champions, but Kyle
That's
Schwarber
a good
is
one.
Kane.
I like that. I like that very much. That's a good, that might be your best one as far as labeling them as a tag team.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have
IKF. I do enjoy, though. I think IKF obviously gets criticism, as you mentioned, but pretty reliable in his time in the Bronx. I did enjoy him over here.
Dude, that dude is going to take the biggest, most absurd leads next year. Just going to be like halfway down the baseline every time. All right, so you got two left. One of these has to go in the one spot, and the other will be down at the number 7 spot. Okay, Bo Bichette is going to come over with, he's up there in age, but pretty steady. Merrill Kelly on the mound. Bo Bichette, Merrill Kelly coming over to help some team together.
I'm going to put it at number 1 because I think Bo Bichette is probably, you can go 1 or 2 as far as the best remaining free agent out there. I like what he brings to the table. Bo, I had said at one point in one of our episodes that I believe he is a franchise superstar. I'm putting Bo there. And listen, I mean, am I okay with Merrill Kelly being my number 1 slot? Probably not. But it is the pitfalls of waiting for number 7. I can't put Bo at number 7 here. I just can't.
Well, listen, as you can probably see, and it's going to be true for the last one here too. I did not make any tag teams just a super. There's no mega powers. There's no mega powers here, where it's like 2 top of the ticket free agents, and that's what I thought made it interesting. All right, so your number 7 now has to be this last one, and that is the Japanese import Tatsuya Imai is going to come over with Ryan Helsley, who now we have all these weird things going on, was great in St. Louis, terrible in Queens, and now there's rumors that certain teams want to turn him into a starting pitcher. A little bit all over the place. That's your combination at number 7.
I would have ranked it higher just because of what Tetsuya is going to bring to the table, but I'm happy it's not number 1. I'll just say that. Right. I'm happy that Bo was number 1.
So let's review here. I'm going to read your rankings 1 to 8. And
I've been
then
writing them down as well, too. I have them over here just for posterity.
Okay, and then I'm going to compare them to where they fell if you combined the players' F4 from this past year, which is not a perfect calculation because some of these guys are missing time with injury. Some of them are relief pitchers, which obviously gain WAR slower, right? They don't have as many opportunities to gain WAR, as many innings. So it's not a perfect calculation, but I think it's the best way to kind of compare. So Steve's list here, Bo Bichette coming in at number 1 with Merrill Kelly. Did you give them a tag team name, by the way?
I did not, but Bo Bichette has the long flowing hair.
Well, not anymore, but he once upon a time did.
He did, but I mean, all right. So Edge and Christian, both the dudes cut their hair. So Edge and Christian. There you go.
Love it. All right, yeah. Merrill Kelly. I could see Merrill Kelly as Christian. Okay, so number 1, Bo Bichette, Merrill Kelly.
Is he father figure Christian, or is he the Christian with?
Well, at his age, yeah, I think he should be father figure. Yeah, turtleneck. Okay. Number 2 on the list for Steve, Kyle Schwarber and IKF. Number 3, Alex Bregman and Zach Littell. Number 4, Kyle Tucker and Kyle Finnegan. Number 5, Michael King and Harrison Bader. Number 6, Framber Valdez and Marcelo Zuna. Number 7, Tatsuya Imai and Ryan Helsley. And number 8, Zach Gallen and Adolis Garcia. Are you happy with that list? Is there anyone that stands out where you're like, I would move that if I got the chance?
Honestly, I feel like now that I'm looking at it, my number 1 probably should have been Schwarber and IKF. I feel like that's probably the strongest combo you put there.
Really like Schwarber, huh?
I do. I think Schwarber probably brings up a lot of the F WAR with all these guys, and expected sort of offense can carry it up. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I'll be honest with you.
All right, so let's look at the F4 here. You had Bo Bichette and Merrill Kelly at number 1, and it turns out their combination is number 1 on the F4 list. Bo Bichette, 3.8 F4, Merrill Kelly, 3.1, combining for 6.9 F4. So well done there. You had Kyle Schwarber and IKF at number 2. On the F4 list, they're number 3, so pretty damn close. Kyle Schwarber carrying most of that weight, 4.9 F4. IKF chips in 0.7 to get them to 5.6. All right, so number 3, you had Bregman and Littell. If I look at the list, they are number 5 on the list, so a little lower than you had them. But again, not gratuitous here. Bregman 3.5, Littell 1.5 to bring them to 5 even. Number 4, you had Tucker and Finnegan, the Kyles. They actually are number 2 on the combined F4 lists. Tucker 4.5, Finnegan 1.2 to bring them to 5.7. So maybe a little bit of a miss there, too low. I was surprised. I thought when you got Tucker that you were going to put him pretty high. Now, you didn't put him low, but I thought you were going to put him a little higher. 5, you had Michael King and Harrison Bader, and they are number 6 on the F4 list. Again, this is a tough calculation because Michael King only gives you 0.8 F4 injury-riddled season. You get him for even 75% of the season. He's putting up way more. So a little skewed, not the greatest thing to look at in his case. Bader actually gives you 3.2. Really nice season for him to get them to 4 total. You have Framber Valdez and Marcell Ozuna at number 6. They were actually number 4 on the F4 list. Framber 4 F4, Ozuna 1.2 to bring him to 5.2. Number 7, you had, all right, this one is basically impossible here because Tatsuya Imai does not have any Major League Baseball F4 under his belt. Now, if you look at the Steamer projections very early, they're actually not very high on how he's going to do in his first year in the bigs. Have him making about 24 starts, like a 4.5, maybe even more than a 4.5 ERA. So they're a little skeptical of his adjustment, at least in the immediate. So I went with that. I used his projected F4 of just 1.0 for 2026. And then Ryan Helsley got 0.2 F4 last year. That was way higher at one point before he became a Met. So only 1.2 there. They were at the bottom of the list. But again, not a great calculation with a guy who was not playing in Major League Baseball last year. And then number 8, you had Zach Gallen and Adolis Garcia. They were number 7 on the F4 list. So you hit that one pretty well. Gallen, not a great year. Decent second half. 1.1 F4. Adolis Garcia, very rough year. Part of the reason he was non-tendered. 0.7, so 1.8 F4 total. So overall, I think relatively good on your end.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was an interesting combination of all players and took it a direction that was unique because you easily could have backloaded with a superstar tandem and just like been like, that's number 1 and could have backed me into a hole, but very strategic. And I think a lot of those teams, like if you had any of those guys signed to your favorite team out there making sense, I mean, it kind of ranks in the same way the F4 kind of does. I mean, maybe Imai is a guy that you look at as like, he could be much better than the projections. But for the rest, I think you'd be, if your team went that route, I think part of the F4 would dictate how you feel they would play next year. And I think that's why the metrics you have to take with a grain of salt all the time. Projections are just that, whether it's Steamer or anything else, but they do hold some weight because they are a window into what we may or may not see due to past performance. And like you said, these players that are coming over from the NPB, it's harder to judge, but for the most part, all we can do is compare what the numbers we have, really.
Yeah, there's not much. And again, I could have looked at everybody's projections for next year instead of looking at what they did last year, but there's no perfect formula there. You had pretty good feel there for a lot of those guys. I mean, you nailed the top with Bo Bichette and Merrill Kelly as that tag team right there.
So for mine here, I don't have the specific numbers for them in the ballpark, which I could have went out and got their road numbers, but I do have some why their profile will fit the ballpark. So we can kind of talk about that after you rank them.
Sure.
And I definitely picked the ballpark based on just a little bit of the feel here. And of course, these are all free agents. And then just for putting it out there, I did have Dylan Cease out there being in Citi Field. So I took him completely off the list. So Dylan Cease is no longer on this list. I'm replacing with another free agent that will be ranked in here with the ballpark. So I'm going to start. Let's start here with Alex Bregman. We talked a lot about him here. And let's pair him with Comerica Park. And obviously Detroit's been tied to Bregman for 2 straight off seasons, and you can zero in the ballpark fit. You can kind of talk about why it is there, but where do you put Bregman and Comerica Park?
Oh man, I'm tempted to be super aggressive here and put him at number 1, but I might leave myself a little wiggle room. All right. I like the fit team-wise. They could use Bregman at third base, just team building for sure. If we just look at team building and not even the park, I mean, we've said now for a year and a half that he fits really well there, leadership-wise, position-wise, lineup-wise. He fits the bill. His former manager, AJ Hinch, is there, so that's a great fit right off the bat. The Red Sox have talked about how he immediately became the leader in the clubhouse. I think that's something Detroit could use. And then if you look at Comerica Park over the last 2 years, park factor on Baseball Savant, the 10th best park factor for right-handed hitters. So I like that as well. So I'll put him at number 2. Again, I'm very tempted to go number 1 and just jump right in, but let me leave myself a little bit of wiggle room here.
So putting Bregman there, and I think you mentioned some of the numbers with Baseball Savant. I also like the profile as well. We will discuss it in full when we have the full list about how I feel about these players in each of these ballparks. But let's move forward here with, you mentioned Framber Valdez, and he's going to find a new home. Chances are he's not going to be back with Houston, and I have him at Wrigley Field. So how do you rank Framber Valdez at Wrigley Field in Chicago, Illinois?
Oh, man, I like this one a lot, too. Oh, man. All right, I'll tell you why I like it, and then as I talk through it, I'm going to try to put him in a number here. I like it a lot because, obviously, Framber is a guy with a history of giving length, but I like it even better in Chicago because of the defense they have up the middle. Nico Horner, maybe the best defensive second baseman in the league. Just analytics will tell you this guy is fantastic out there. Dansby Swanson, pretty damn good as well. Can make a lot of great plays. Heady player as well. Lots of experience under his belt. So, again, this is another combination I really like. Ground ball guy with those two guys up the middle. I'm still not going to bite at number one, and I might regret it at the end. Let's put him at number 3. Taking a lot of top spots here.
All right, so Valdez in Wrigley to number 3, which means we have 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 left. So 2 and 3 are now gone. And let's head to Cody Bellinger. And I have him going to Oracle Park in San Francisco. How do you feel about that and how that fits?
My initial gut is I don't love it. Don't get me wrong. Cody Bellinger is the kind of player who I almost feel like can fit on any team. He's such a great athlete, can play different positions. I worry a little bit about an offensive decline there. I'm trying to look very quickly here at the left-handed hitters' parks. So we've talked about this with other guys as well. 22nd ranked the last 2 years in park factor for left-handed hitters. And Cody, it's interesting because he seems to be everyone's free agent darling this year. And it wasn't that long ago where this guy was hitting on the interstate. Like, he's seemingly found his swing again, but partly because Yankee Stadium was so friendly to his swing. So there'd be a worry that he would take another step back instead of forward, going to a park that is a little harder on that swing. Yankee Stadium, 11th best for left-handed hitters. You're going to the 22nd best in Oracle Park. I'm going to put it at number... I don't necessarily hate Cody Bellinger anywhere, to be honest. I'll put it at number 6.
Yeah, the Bellinger piece for me, when I considered this, was not just offensively, but his defense in that ballpark certainly plays a part for me as well. And I looked at some of the metrics for maybe guys losing home runs, as you mentioned, but it might result in more doubles, more triples, and more run creation for a guy like Cody Bellinger. And it depends on how you measure offense. Do you measure losing power as a lack of offense or not? And I think he would spray the ball elsewhere. And he's a guy that's really not a one-dimensional pull slugger. He's not that guy. And we've seen him in this renaissance with the Yankees. He's going to get paid. I don't believe he's going to San Francisco. I just thought it was an interesting combination. But
I mean, you're onto something with the doubles. If you look at Oracle Park for left-handed hitters, specifically for hitting doubles, they're in the red in a good way. Like they're in the blue for most things. Kind of cold for left-handed hitters, but then you get to doubles and triples, and the numbers are toward the top of the list. So you're right. Some of that turns into a different part of the game. Sometimes I just don't think it's as easy. I think it could mess with the player's head. And he's got so many moving parts to that swing already. I don't know if I like putting him in a park that might mess with his head a little bit.
So 6 is gone now. So what we have left is 1, 4, 5, 7, and 8. So the top spot's still remaining. I have a feeling this spot might take it, but who knows? Kyle Schwarber at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, I like this a lot for a lot of reasons. I've been saying that the Reds, I will not hold my breath, and I've also said that, but the Reds just need to go out there and get a banger, get a slugger this offseason. They made it to the playoffs. I mean, let's be honest, they backed in because of these idiots that I'm wearing on my head, right? The Mets let them in. And then they got smoked by the Dodgers, which brought them crashing back down to reality and showed them they're just not there yet, right? The new playoff system allowed them to be part of the postseason, but I think a lot of fans probably forget they were even in it. That's how bad it was. I think we've noticed that Elly De La Cruz, as versatile and dynamic and athletic as he is, I don't necessarily think he's the 1A star. He's electric, but I don't think he's carrying an offense because he goes into some really cold streaks and is not necessarily the power hitter we thought he would be. Maybe he does turn into that at one point, but I think he's more of a 20 home run, lots of stolen bases kind of guy, and he's always going to have some whiff in his game. You need that banger in there to team up with him. And I've said Kyle Schwarber, hometown kid. He's even said surely seems interested with his comments. He was at his hometown high school, I believe, recently, and straight up said, like, yeah, it's a dream for your hometown team to give you a call. Will they give him that call? We don't really know. Will they actually give him a serious offer, or will they do what the Pirates do with some players apparently and offer them something they know they're not going to actually take? But with that being said, we're not saying the if. We're saying if this match happened, how much would we like it? You're right. I am going to put this at number 1 because I've been saying this, banging this drum for a while. It makes too much sense. Number 1, Schwarber to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, with the Great American Ballpark aspect, we know how offenses do get spike there. And a guy like him, you mentioned the hometown piece with Middletown, Ohio, the high school. He grew up idolizing the Big Red Machine. It does have this coming home arc that does make you feel a little bit sentimental, but it would have to make sense. And I'm still not of the belief that he's leaving Philly. I'm really not. I just don't believe he's leaving there. But if he does, I feel like this is a really decent option that he can go there and help a team that's, let's be honest, ready to take the next step if they're willing. And I think Schwarber can help them do that. And we know that he's the type of player that can definitely boost an offense. But let's head here to the guy who replaced Dylan Cease, and it's Pete Alonso. And I have him in Fenway Park. How do you feel about that?
All right. Well, I mean, this was my prediction in our free agency prediction draft. This is hard for me because I want him back in New York, to be honest. Just to follow up one thing, also just if we look at the analytics for Schwarber too, it does back up what we're saying. Left-handed hitters, 5th best park, really tied for 3rd actually with Fenway as far as left-handed hitters there. It's actually not quite as good as Citizens Bank though, so like it's really good, but Citizens Bank is also really, really good over the last 2 years. All right, so Pete Alonso in Fenway. A lot of people have been making this prediction. I will say I feel like I was one of the first ones. I'm not trying to toot my own horn there, but I feel like I was on that pretty early. We did that episode very early in the offseason. A lot of people have been saying they love the thought of Pete in Fenway because they could just picture bombs going over the big green monster there. You got to realize if you watch Pete Alonso, when he's going well, a lot of home runs are like laser beams to center. When he's going really well, he's hitting opposite field home runs. When he's actually struggling is when he's trying to yank everything over the left field wall and pulling the ball. Great up the middle hitter when he's going that way. So I don't necessarily point to that. I think he's a fit on the team. I think they're another team that could use a little bop. I think, they've added to the rotation, whether the fans are happy with it or not. The next move logically would be getting that reliable big bat to pair with some of the guys there. Now, you could argue Bregman fits them better than Pete. That's a different kind of argument, but I do like him in the lineup, so I'll give him that. Lineup I like. Fenway, as far as right-handed hitters, 11th in park factor over the last 2 years, so very good. If I look specifically at home run park factor, they're only rated a 90, to be honest, so they're a little bit in the blue. And he's a home run hitter, so you want that number to be higher in my mind. I think it's a good fit team-wise, roster building, team building. Ballpark, I don't think is as amazing as some people are pointing to because I think they're misunderstanding his complete game, to be honest. I'll put it at number 5.
All right, so Alonso and Fenway at number 5 here, which means we have number 4, 7, and 8 left here.
Ooh, I better hate something here.
3 remaining, and I'm going to go with the next one here. I'm curious where you put this one. Bo Bichette at Truist Park, the home of the Atlanta Braves.
I'm going to try not to be biased here. I really don't want to see him in Atlanta. I really don't want to see him in Atlanta, but I'm going to try to put that aside. All right, Truist Park, right in the middle as far as park factor, rated at 100, so right on the average as far as for right-handed hitters go. He's not necessarily a home run hitter anyway these days. He's more of a doubles guy, on-base guy, clutch kind of hitter. He's going to be a big add for any team, to be honest. Just high batting average guy, knows how to get on base. I love the player. In Atlanta, their one black hole the last few years has been shortstop. Okay, we've had Orlando Arcia there for a little while, and Nick Allen, and they recently just traded for Mauricio Dubon, and Atlanta fans are hoping that's not the actual starting guy at shortstop as the seasons or when the season starts. But you also got to remember, I would like Bo personally better as a second baseman wherever he goes for this next part of his career. He's not going to play second base in Atlanta. Ozzy Albies was brought back in. He's still there. So I don't love that he would still have to play shortstop as a part of the Braves. So although I think he fits almost any team as a hitter, I don't love the defensive fit. So I'm going to put him at number 7 here. I don't necessarily hate it, but I think there's better fits as far as where can he go play second base.
Very interesting for sure. So that means we have number 4 and number 8 left. So I'm going to go with another heavy hitter here, and that's Kyle Tucker at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia.
All right. Well, I have 2 options here, number 4 or number 8. I certainly don't think this is such a bad fit that it's going to number 8. I just told you how good of a park CBP is for left-handed hitters. So I'd be pretty foolish to put him at the bottom here. I believe this was also in one of my picks in the free agent prediction draft, Kyle Tucker going to Philly. So I've already said that it's something that I could see happening. Citizens Bank Park, the second best park factor for left-handed hitters over the last 2 years. It's a great hitter's park overall. Home run-wise, it is the number 1 ranked park factor for left-handed hitters if we just look at home runs. So it's a great fit. I probably would love to put it higher, to be honest, but I already have Schwarber to Cincy in the number 1 spot. To be honest, I like that. Bregman in Detroit at number 2, Fromber and Wrigley at 3. I don't think any of those are necessarily bad. I probably would have put him over Fromber if I could do it again, but let's plug him in at number 4.
So let's figure out who your number 8. Let's turn that card over, and it's Munetaka Murakami going to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim at Angel Stadium. How do you feel about that one with this guy coming over for the first time, age 25? Any regrets on him being number 8 or feeling like it's just where it should be?
I actually feel like it's just where it should be. So I don't necessarily, I think both sides, this is not the greatest move. First of all, the Angels, I mean, we know they've been a little bit of a mess. I think the Angels need sure things right now. Proven commodities in Major League Baseball is what they need right now. Or youngsters with high potential. Murakami is anything but a sure thing coming over to Major League Baseball. His strikeout numbers are through the roof. His whiff rate, if you look at the last 4 years, to a degree, some of these bad numbers have gotten worse instead of progressing the right way. So there's a lot of concerns with him. I mean, when he hits home runs, it is like watching Robert Redford in The Natural. I mean, they're shots. Like, it's impressive. The bat speed, the exit velocity, all super impressive and would be right at the top when we look at those StatCast kind of numbers. But I think for a team like the Angels, man, they just need some proven commodities to kind of get that team going the right way. So I don't love it for them. I don't love for Murakami's sake going to a franchise that's really struggled to kind of get their act together as well. And he kind of ends up playing in the shadow of the Japanese players that are playing for the Dodgers too, which I don't think would be a great for his ego. So I think that actually does fit in number 8 with the list that you gave me.
So as we kind of wrap up this segment here, let's go through the list you have here. We have Kyle Schwarber at Great American Ballpark as number 1, Alex Bregman at Comerica Park with the Detroit Tigers at number 2, Framber Valdez at Wrigley Field with the Chicago Cubs. At number 4, we have Kyle Tucker in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park, one of the more prolific offensive stadiums in baseball. Number 5, you put Pete Alonso at Fenway Park with the Boston Red Sox. Number 6, you landed with Cody Bellinger at Oracle Park for San Francisco. We also have Bo Bichette, number 7, in Atlanta. You don't like the fit defensively, but also reference that some of the pieces there could extend some of the extra base hits we see for him as long as he can stay healthy. And number 8, Murakami with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim being number 8. You mentioned being okay with Murakami there, maybe wanting Tucker a little bit higher, but any other regret that you immediately want to change if you had a rebuttal here?
It's not a big regret. Honestly, I wouldn't do much. I would move Bo Bichette, Atlanta, I'd put at number 6, and I'd move Bellinger down to 7 in San Francisco. So I just flip-flop those two. Everything else, just Tucker in Philly, I would put above Fromber and Wrigley and just flip-flop those two as well. So really minor adjustments, and I feel like I'd be pretty happy with the list that I have.
And the goal was to come up with some unique fits. Of course, there are ones that they're expected, like the Bregman Comerica one, but there's been a lot of heavy conversation about hypotheticals and some of the other fits. And yeah, these are possibilities. MLB Trade Rumors does have these as all possibilities, being a potential that they could land on these ball clubs. But I think it is interesting to talk about the fit of potential free agents and where they wind up landing. Because I think if we're looking at all 8 of these guys, I would be shocked if 50% of them wind up in the ballpark that we're talking about and projecting. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that was the fun part about this.
Yeah, again, like if you're just kind of pairing together exactly what everyone's saying already, like the number one, like the biggest chance they're already where everyone thinks they're going to go, not as interesting. This makes you think maybe about a combination you haven't thought about, and it's fun. I mean, what did you think when you look at my list? Is there anything stands out that like you would be like, nah, I'm moving this around big time?
My immediate when I was making this list was Schwarber at Great American Ballpark as number 1, and then Tucker in Philly at number 2. But the rest sort of fall where they may. Like the Bellinger thing was going to be an interesting conversation. I knew it would be lower on the list, and it would have been for me as well because of the muted power we see in that ballpark. But yeah. I do like the defensive metrics, and I also like the extra base hits. But he is a year older, and he's not the same player he was when he was the MVP with the Dodgers. But again, what we saw last year shows that he could still sort of rake and put up the numbers we're looking for. If I'm looking for a Bellinger to kind of expand what the rest of his career looks like, if he's looking for a longer term deal, certainly doesn't have him legging out triples in San Francisco. To me, he has to be in a ballpark that's a little bit more hitter friendly. That's the way I feel about it.
I'm on the same page. The Murakami thing, like my argument was mostly not analytical. It was more so like fit and what the franchise is like and kind of the unknown with him. But even if you look at the park factor, I mean, for a left-handed hitter, they're 18th ranked. I mean, the park factor is a 99, so it's like just below average, I guess. It's not that crazy. But do you buy into what I was saying? Like, not even looking at the analytical side, just where the franchise stands and him coming over and what he brings and some of the questions about him. Like, do you buy that could be kind of a toxic fit?
Yeah, for sure. And I can see why the Angels would do it because they've made decisions like this before, because there is some market narratives to this to try to strike while the iron's hot. There's a chance that Murakami does become a star in this baseball. You mentioned the swing, the prolific power hitter.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of holes in his swing. It's not the guaranteed thing that Shohei Ohtani was. And there was questions about Ohtani. Let's not forget that coming in. But there's way more conversation about can Murakami adapt. I don't think anyone expected Ohtani not to adapt. It's just a matter of was he able to reach the prolific level he did reach. I don't think anyone's having that conversation about Murakami. I don't think he's going to be the face of every advertisement around Japan this time in 5 years, 6 years down the line. But you could see the Angels taking that as far as this, like a natural fit, trying to expand that market, just the side of things when they want to capture really the magic that Shohei was on a cheaper ticket. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. If we're ranking like the possibility of it happening, it would be higher on the list because I could definitely see the Angels trying to jump in and make that move for probably the wrong reasons. And that's not to say that I don't think there's anybody that should sign him. I think there are certain teams that should take that risk and that he'd fit well with. But Ohtani, it's funny. People forget there were doubts about him. There's this like famous scouting report where someone said it's like something along the lines of like it's like watching a high school hitter or something like that. Just nuts.
The Mike Francesa quote that he was on MLB Network, I believe, with Mad Dog on Mad Dog's show.
Yeah, like a mini reunion.
He was talking about how the Yankees were lucky they didn't land Ohtani.
I remember that.
Ohtani was struggling, or he might have got lit up pitching against the Yankees when he was with the Angels, something like that. But I also want to put some love on Tetsuya Imai, who did say he doesn't want to pitch for the Dodgers. And we'll see where he winds up saying, but he did say, I want to beat them. And I just appreciate that energy. Like, again,
dude, I want him on the Mets.
On the line. Come on.
I want him on the Mets literally just for that quote. Like there's parts of his games that I've read about and watched that I really do like too. But that quote completely, like, I'm all in on him now. I don't know if the Mets are going to be poking around there or not. I think there's a chance. But I want him in orange and blue now. I saw that quote and it fired me up. Like, I've been waiting for that because there's been so many Kevin Durant's recently in all sports and not enough Tatsuya Imai's, to be honest. I love that someone has that attitude. And all we heard before Yamamoto and Sasaki signed with the Dodgers, all we heard before that was that in Japanese culture, they didn't like to sign where there was already go where there was already a Japanese star. And then the two of them completely flip that narrative, which, I mean, to each their own, like, do what you want to do. But I love that Amai came out and said that publicly, like that he wants to take them down. How awesome is that? Now he better not go sign with them after that, because that would be even worse than the Kevin Durant kind of stuff.
Yeah, but seeing Glass now and Snell at the parade saying like can't beat him, join him, like that energy is so weak. It's so weak to me, especially after being on the Rays in 2020, and then you get a ring. It's well deserved. They pitched well to be there. Snell was magical this postseason, but all of that, it just rings a little bit hollow to me. The competitive edge is just like, really, don't beat him, join him type of energy. Yeah, you mentioned the Twitter polls and conversation. I just want to kind of give the context for it. You did post up there at Table Setters Pod on X. Which of these free agent pitchers do you trust most to live up to a 4+ year contract? You mentioned Dylan Cease pulled away at 38%, but the other guys on the list, Framber Valdez at 19%, Ranger Suarez at 33%, and Michael King, everyone seems to share the injury concerns that you and I both kind of echoed on here at 10%.
Yeah, and we talked about 3 of those 4 pretty we talked about him at length tonight, some more than others. The one guy we didn't really touch on was Ranger Suarez. I mean, he's the closest in that poll as of now to Cease. And I mean, you know what it is about Suarez, man? Like, the stuff and some of the analytics and things like that aren't as sexy as some of those other guys. That dude gets the job done. He's only 30. He's amazing in the playoffs, and he has a lot of playoff history. And yes, he seems to get injured at least once a year, but the injuries have never been like the big injury. Like, so there's something to be said. Like, I don't want to give him 7 years, but I also wouldn't have wanted to give C 7 years.
True.
I think Suarez on a 5-year deal where the 5th year is like a mutual option or something would be a really nice deal for some team out there. I don't know. There's something about him that I feel like is a little more of a sure thing than the other 3. I mean, don't get me wrong. If it wasn't for Framber Valdez's last 2 or 3 months, he would be at the top of my list. I'm a big Framber guy, but obviously things got a little more murky with him when he didn't pitch well down the stretch, and then he had the catcher incident. But Ranger, man, the guy's just good, solid.
Yeah, and we will definitely talk considerably more about these free agents as the dominoes continue to fall. Seems like the winter meetings are exponentially closer and closer in the front view of our car as we drive down. This offseason just gets hotter and hotter. The Cease news just dropped out of nowhere, so who knows when any of these free agents will sign down the line. And usually it's at the most inopportune times during the holiday season where we get it. But we will be on here covering all those things in full, not stopping the train here. This potential will have another episode this week for you guys following Thanksgiving. So Devin and I are working hard to continually get guests on here, bringing all perspectives of this offseason for sure. Make sure you stay tuned to Instagram and X at Table Setters Pod for information about this. And again, if you like what you listen to, if you're here for the first time since the Eno Saris episode, or potentially Will Klein or Keith Rad, leave a 5-star review. It helps in the algorithm. I know we are ranking on Good Pods. We're on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support, all the love. We're here for the love of the game. We just love talking about baseball. But as Devin mentioned at the opening of the show, it's very validating to be recognized in this space for 2 guys that are just doing it on really just the love of creating content and having conversation in a genuine way. And hopefully you guys are enjoying the journey with us.
Yeah, man, we love every bit of this, whether it be actually recording the show or interacting with you guys on social media or cutting clips of shows to put out there. And just like reading comments from you guys is some of the best moments we've had doing this show. And we're still fairly early in it. I mean, basically not really quite 2 full years. Like, we've gotten through 2 major league seasons, but I would say when this season starts, that would be officially 2 years of the podcast, and WBC coming up under 100 days away now. That'll be brand new for us covering that. So lots to come, like Steve said.
For sure. And like we said, we may be back later this week. So stay tuned to social media for all those announcements. We hope you guys all have an amazing Thanksgiving with your family. Take some time, take some opportunity to recognize what you are grateful for, the people around you. Take some time off from the busy day-to-day, the grind that is, whether it's sports or work or whatever, and the stress. Just appreciate the holidays as they approach, because there's only a handful that you get in your lifetime, right? If you really consider the amount of Thanksgivings and Christmas we get to share with each other, if we're lucky, you get like 60 of them, right? 65, like ones that you're conscious of. Just take some appreciation during this time. It's a little bit maybe corny or sentimental or whatever you want to put it, but this time of the year, it's putting sports aside for a second and just appreciating the people around you, being thankful for everything you have is important.
Yeah, and then bringing sports back. Red Sox fans, like when you're at the table tomorrow, I want you guys, I want you to say across the table, I am thankful for Sonny Gray to be my number 2 starter, because when I really look at it, it could be way worse. Can you guys do that for me? I think you can do that. Just verbalize it and you might start believing it.
And I am thankful that Hal Steinbrenner has excess money to put in his pocket and put some new lights and a TV on his yacht. You know, I just feel good about that. I'm just thankful for it.
You know what? That's big of you. That's very big of you.
So we will be back soon talking all things baseball. Until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy Thanksgiving and happy baseball.
In a year that has been so improbable, the